Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of you for being here. Mr. Caldwell, I lost a younger brother in an airplane crash. I couldn't talk about it for 3 years. It's been 5 years ago. I have to compliment you on being here because there becomes a callousness, kind of a feeling that these deaths don't really matter. So without people like you stepping up and explaining the loss, then things don't tend to happen. So I want to thank you again for what it takes for you to be here today.
Thank you.
And perhaps you can share with us what you do to try to bring yourself to talk about this kind of loss.
Well, honestly, when this happened on June 24th, I didn't make it public until the next day. But I was really going to wait until the following week because I didn't want to have to deal with the emotions that come with the folks calling and checking in on you. But I decided to post it on June 25th and make it publicly known because the people who had murdered my brother were still out there. As you all know, I work for Fox News Channel, and it's been a tremendous platform for me, and I thank the people over at Fox News Channel, Suzanne Scott, and many others, who've allowed me to be able to tell my story. And as I begin to tell the story, it really hit me the many people who don't have access to such platforms to be able to get justice for their families, to have their voices known. When my brother was murdered, the newscast that day said 18-year-old murdered, 2 other people shot. That was it. No name, no picture. And how many other people are experiencing that daily if they even get mentioned on the news? I know that the people behind me are overwhelmed. I know that the Chicago police, there's many really good heroes within the Chicago police. I only share my story and I get before cameras because I want to ensure that not just my brother's murder case is solved, but many, many others. So I've been able to utilize the platform in which I have at Fox News to share other stories of families who are looking for that help. That's one of the reasons as I was going through the process of planning my brother's funeral and I saw how expensive it was. And I'm thinking, the folks who live in Chicago, a lot of poor people and live in these particular areas, they're receiving the brunt of the murders. How can they afford this? So it was a mission of mine, and it's one that I'll continue.
Well, thank you so much for that. Mr. Garrido, or excuse me, Lieutenant Garrido, I have a friend who's a retired prosecutor, so I reached out to him in anticipation of today's meeting. I asked him what standards should apply to prosecutors, and he says as about national standards, there aren't many, but that's because each local community is supposed to elect folks who will protect them. And so rather than have a national standard, that's the approach he mentioned. That said, he goes on to say, the people of Chicago have no less interest in being safe from random shootings, gang violence, and rampant drug dealing than any other part of America. And then he says this, what is particularly risible about Kim Foxx is that she's looked primarily to the criminal defense attorneys and advocates for criminals known as the woke community, or known in the woke community as the criminal justice affected community, not victim groups, not police or law enforcement organizations. For example, Fox, as well as approximately 3 dozen Soros DAs out of the 2,500 elected DAs in the United States, do not participate in the National DA Association, by far the largest prosecutor organization, which has been around since 1950. And that organization, to which they don't apparently belong, has avoided taking partisan political positions. She and other Soros DAs have coalesced around a much smaller group called the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys, which has few members nationwide, and unlike the NDAA, has taken very partisan political positions. My question to you is, after all that, is it true that they're taking political positions as opposed to those which are going to help more adequately control crime? Absolutely. Please explain them.
Absolutely. Just like I said before about her changing the threshold for felony theft from 500 to 1,000, she has a lot of leeway to decide what they're going to charge and what they're not going to charge. Or when we present homicide cases or any case for felony approval, they put a lot of restrictions and just create these long lists of things that we have to do to try to, hoops that we have to jump through, and they make it difficult. If I could, a sentence from a letter that one of the state's attorneys, a top-ranking state's attorney, left. He said, The state's attorney voiced her concern with a headline and the heat she was getting over her backers and never voiced any concern over the fact that this woman was shot and killed simply for walking to the store, and nobody's going to face a murder charge. That is what is wrong with this administration. This administration is more concerned with political narratives and agendas than with victims and prosecuting violent crime. This is why I can't stay any longer. This is one of several public letters that were put out by state's attorneys as they're leaving. It's 100% based on political ideology and not seeking justice for victims in Chicago.
Thank you so much. My time's up. I yield back.